It's been said that tragedy is the foundation of country music, but no one could have predicted that Keith Urban's heartbreak would unfold in a fluorescent courtroom rather than to the cheers of the audience on stage. The man who used to sing about healing love was now standing under oath, his hands shaking, his face pallid, and microphones in place of music. The atmosphere was dense, with reporters murmuring to each other like vultures in anticipation of a fall. Nicole Kidman's mother was holding a pile of receipts somewhere in the second row as if they were sacred texts. As his bright-eyed protégé Maggie Baugh stood composed and unflinching, the woman whose truth had just broken Nashville's favorite fairy story. At last, the facade of the ideal marriage had crumbled. Furthermore, it produced a louder sound than any chord he had ever played on a guitar. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had been Hollywood's harmony for years. He, the reformed rebel, and she, the elegant icon with a sense of the countryside. They marketed the picture of dedication together. However, insiders murmured behind that picture-perfect lens, concerning unanticipated transfers, missing money, and artistic endeavors that didn't fit into any formal timetable. Those murmurs became a scream on the day of Maggie Baugh's. The lawyer put a flash drive on the table and hit the play button. Keith's cool, collected voice filled the courtroom speakers as they discussed accounting, under the holdings of Urban Foundation. The evidence showed that the purported charity supporting up-and-coming artists was actually a front for extravagant expenditures. A private plane lease, and from Sydney to Switzerland, there is a maze of shell accounts and an ocean villa. The judge's gaze grew wide. The crowd let out a gasp. The man who used to sing about redemption and faith now appeared to be the focus of a financial thriller. Nicole Kidman remained seated. However, the sparkle in her mother's eyes spoke for itself. "I told her, ego always costs more than love." Janelle leaned forward and murmured. Like a verdict, that phrase cut through the quiet. Keith, who is renowned for his composure and calm, started tapping his fingers against the stand in an uneasy cadence that revealed the tempest simmering beneath his placid face. Maggie didn't flinch when he attempted to look her in the eyes. The pupil had arrived to reveal her teacher. The world went crazy outside. In a matter of minutes, hashtags such as Keith Urban's revealed, and every platform had a trend in Maggie Baugh receipts. Once supporting fans joked that he had traded a guitar for a guitar by posting memes of shattered guitars and sad emojis. A Grammy for a con artist. However, betrayal was hidden behind the laughter. This went beyond rumors about famous people. In real time, it was a fall from grace. According to others close to Nicole, she had surreptitiously engaged a private investigator months prior. After discovering that one of her movie accounts was inexplicably connected to a charity fund that was registered in Keith's name. That path led directly to the midnight sessions with Maggie Baugh. Transfers posing as studio grants and encrypted emails. It was more than simply a financial trail. It was a map showing misplaced faith. Maggie's attorney presented her with emails that offered her incentives to keep quiet until projects were completed, and the courtroom once more gasped. Suddenly, the term creative partnership sounded like a code word for conspiracy. By the time of lunch break, it was described by reporters outside the courthouse as the largest collapse in country music since the Cash Meets scandal. Keith's lawyer attempted to reroute the storm inside, asserting the evidence was a resentful associate's misconstrued context. However, the judge's silent question, "Then why do these documents carry the signature of your client?" You could have heard a pin drop. The camera itself ceased clicking. Nicole Kidman got to her feet at that point. She walked silently over to the bench and gave the judge a sealed envelope. The sound of her heels sounded like gavel blows. She simply turned and sat next to her mother without crying or saying anything. The judge's eyebrows went up as he opened the envelope. There were bank reports and management communications attesting to Keith's authority over shared resources via fictitious production companies. Maggie Baugh's business name was used to register VA Entertainment LLC, one of them. The amount next to it was $250,000 for the renting of equipment. Once more, the audience gasped. The reality wasn't it was monetized, but it was messy. Then the SMS texts arrived. Screenshots were displayed onto the courtroom by the attorney. Screen. Keith Urban sent Maggie Baugh messages that made it difficult to distinguish between passion and deception. Stay silent until the sale is finalized. It will be worthwhile. One more. Nicole's team should not be involved. They make the art more difficult. Like smoke from a fire that everyone saw coming but no one wanted to acknowledge existed. The words hung thick in the air. Nicole's head dropped, her eyes glistening, from confirmation, not from astonishment. She had called him her companion, her peace, her redemption, and she had supported him against all the rumors for years. All that was in front of her now was a man she had forgotten. The story became a quest on social media for the truth. Timelines linking Maggie's career peaks with questionable financing spikes were established by TikTok investigators. It was summed up in a single viral post. She stole not only his attention but also his soundtrack. In the meantime, it was stated by the FBI that one of Keith's since 2019 foreign accounts have been quietly being examined for unauthorized transfers connected to celebrity causes. He appeared more guilty with each disclosure. Each and every, the update seemed more like an admission of guilt. Maggie's attorney grinned and hit play on another recording when the defense attempted to argue that Maggie's proof was fake. Once more, Keith's voice reverberated. Nicole's group is moving too slowly. We'll do it on our own. The room went cold. Nicole's face was buried in her hands. The former truth-themed songwriter had recently been heard planning deception. Another revelation was made as rumors swirled around the courtroom. According to reports, Keith Urban had taken out insurance policies, designating himself as the beneficiary for more than $10 million under his wife's production company. According to insiders, the discovery originated from Nicole's mom, who had looked over the contracts for a project that was coming up. Later, what she said to her daughter would become widely shared. Like a stock, he has been paying you out. The golden marriage of country music had become embroiled in a scandal by the end of the day that even reality television was unable to right. Overnight, Hugh Jackman and Reese Witherspoon unfollowed him. Longtime partners' duets that were stealthily taken from playlists. The hush in Nashville was overwhelming. The headlines grew, yet the courtroom grew empty. From TMZ to the BBC, every publication referred to it as the dissolution of the Urban Empire. In the midst of all of that pandemonium, Keith Urban sat motionless, his head bowed, recognizing the most depressing aspect of all. Love songs had been the foundation of his empire. Now, love itself had provided testimony. In opposition to him, by the following morning, the courthouse resembled a burning movie more than a legitimate structure. The roadway was lined with satellite trucks. The name Keith Urban was already a worldwide headline, and cameras flashed like lightning. The man who used to fill music-filled stadiums were becoming the subject of scandalous front pages. His face was heavy with fatigue and incredulity when he arrived. The stillness that comes from a lifetime of denial finally caught up with the charm that had been lost. Mice were thrust forward, reporters shouted questions, and throughout it all, Nicole Kidman left her car without giving him a sidelong glance. Her every move sounded final. The stroll of someone who'd already penned her own conclusion. Tension crackled inside. The initial shock occurred before the hearing started. Carrying sealed evidence boxes marked Urban Foundation Holdings, FBI officers marched in. Individuals muttered as though church was held prior to a confession. The judge demanded an order by banging the gavel twice, but it had no effect. A quorum had already been supplanted by curiosity. Upon opening the boxes, files like secrets too weighty to be buried, they flowed out. Contracts, concealed ledgers, offshore statements, and transfer logs connected Keith to shell businesses in 3 different nations. The proof was no longer a hearsay. It was documents, timestamps, and signatures. That told their own tale. The room was astonished by one document. Maggie received a wire transfer from Nicole Kidman's studio account. Disguised as a development fund, Baugh's independent label. The week when Maggie's single hit peaked at #1 on the streaming charts coincided exactly with the date. As Nicole watched the man she once loved fall apart in real time, her lips quivered, but she remained calm. When the court inquired about any more evidence, Maggie's attorney stood up as if he had been anticipating that line. Calmly, "Yes, Your Honor," he replied. A secondary, the Bureau has received the hard drive. The hall reverberated with gasps. That according to reports, the disk had not just financial information but also confidential voice memos, emails, and contracts that connected Keith Urban's management group to unlawful joint fund transfers, shared money transfers. Keith's recorded voice filled the room once more as an assistant pressed play, this time seeming almost colder. Corporate. We'll take a different path via the trust. Until everything clears, don't mention her name, he said. Each word had a deeper meaning. Nicole put her hand over her mouth. The magistrate bent forward. The gallery died. Quiet. In a single sound clip, years of interviews about love, humility, and atonement came to an abrupt end. Maggie sat with her hands unmoving. Lawyers scrawled like their pens could catch fire, hands clutched, eyes focused on the ground. Nicole's mother, Janelle Kidman, was then summoned. She was composedly furious. She displayed written correspondence from Keith's accounting department attesting to the fact that he had deleted Nicole's name. From joint venture agreements to simplify resources. He caught the judge's attention. He questioned, "Did you authorize this?" After appearing disoriented for a moment, Keith murmured, "I thought it was temporary." The room exploded. The word temporary killed all justifications. That one quote was trending all around the world by the time the session adjourned. Courtroom footage became a spectacle outside thanks to the internet. Feeds were taken over by hashtags such as Dash of Justice for Nicole and Keith Urban's trial. Montages of Nicole standing were made by fans. Powerful, accompanied with depressing country instrumentals. Keith's misstep was repeatedly replayed by others with the tagline, "From spotlight to spotlight interrogation." For each devoted follower who stood up for him, 10 more commented on his duplicity and how even the purest voice can conceal the most vile truth. But inside, the narrative changed from one of celebrity drama to one of governmental reality. The agents reported that several accounts with the Urban Foundation were formally frozen. Keith's world tour promoter appeared in court to declare that gigs would be postponed until financial matters were resolved. Because of the virulent public opinion, not the court decision, even Nashville's top radio stations started removing his music from playback. Overnight, the golden boy of country music had turned into a cautionary story. It reached its peak of intensity when Nicole Kidman herself took the stand. Her eyes remained steady while the cameras clicked frantically. She spoke without trembling. It was filled with heartbreak-carved strength. "I thought love was the basis of our relationship," she murmured softly. However, when love turns into a front for dishonesty, it's not marriage and how it's handled. Like thunder, that line fell. Each and every outlet. The quote that ended a dynasty was printed in a matter of minutes. For the first time, Keith's tears weren't a part of a song as he bent his head. The judge acknowledged that a thorough FBI review would start right away, but she also deferred the session. There were rumors that Keith's tour sponsors had already withdrawn their support. Out. And they were reviewing his endorsement deals. Moving vans were seen outside their residence back home. By midday, Nicole's property was lost. He buried his legacy himself. Despite her efforts to preserve it, a close acquaintance told a reporter. As the Maggie Baugh's position in the public spotlight changed as the investigation progressed. She was praised by some as the courageous whistleblower who exposed the corruption of a celebrity. She was accused by some of using heartbreak to get headlines. However, one thing was certain from federal filings. Her participation was accepted. Immunity. She would not be prosecuted. Keith was not in the same boat. His group was now being investigated for fabricated charity reports and possible years-old tax infractions. His once celebrated empire was now being scrutinized line by line. The consequences were immediate. The number of streams decreased by over 50%. Business associates sent courteous public statements, pulling away. Overnight, country legends who formerly referred to him as a brother erased old pictures. Even Taylor Swift, who is renowned for her nuanced criticism, declined to react when questioned. And supporters understood that silence was sufficient. Nashville's newest controversy was its favorite son. As the last Keith Urban walked out via a flurry of bright lights as the day's session came to an end. When he murmured to someone, his voice was hardly heard and his face was ghostly. His own words, It wasn't supposed to happen like this. As if it were the lyrics of a tragedy he had unintentionally created, that line kept playing on social media. Perhaps it was due to the fact that halfway between success and failure, between love and treachery, between money and music, the man who used to sing of salvation had completely lost the melody. Later that evening, when the headlines cried out and each tear was examined in podcasts, the truth broke through the cacophony. Nicole Kidman didn't require retribution. She possessed the truth, which was more audible than any concluding remarks. The fable was gone. The empire fell apart, and the Keith Urban's guitar's strings would never again appear innocent. Notoriety had once shielded him. It was now the evidence that found him guilty. Additionally, as the Globe observed, the last note of his, there was no cheering. There was quiet. There was quiet. Quiet. There was quiet.